two important genera in the coronavirus family: alpha coronavirus and beta coronavirus. And this COVID-19 sits into the beta coronavirus genus. And they are a cause of many minor common cold illnesses like adenoviruses, rhinoviruses. But as of late, since the last couple of 2 decades, we've been having issues pertaining to these coronaviruses. The first major issue was in 2003 when the SARS pandemic broke out in Guangzhou, China. Then we had another issue in 2012 when the MERS pandemic, that's Middle East Respiratory Syndrome virus, broke out. And now we've had the next issue, that is SARS-CoV-2, novel coronavirus, which is called COVID-19 in short. So this is the basic structure of the SARS novel coronavirus. You can see outside we have got these long projections, these red color projections. These are basically called the spike glycoproteins or the S protein. This is the protein against which many of the vaccines are being directed. We are taking this gene that codes for this and we are synthesizing it artificially, or we are isolating it and we are incorporating it into the vaccine. And you can see these tiny green globules over here. This is basically the membrane protein which sort of constitutes the membrane of the virus. And this is the envelope protein, which is marked over here, pink in color with E. Since this is an envelope virus, it's imperative that we do have an envelope protein. And this is the most important part because this is the nucleocapsid. This is basically the blueprint of the virus. This is the nucleic acid coupled with the capsid. And you can see it's a helical symmetry. It's, in a helical manner. It's not a proper icosahedral or a complex symmetry. This is the genomic structure of SARS. I mean, there's still some kinks being worked out, but in short, it has got around 13 to 14 open reading frames. 2 open reading frames known as ORF1A and ORF1B. These are the ones that occupy the maximum length of genome. To a major extent, the length of the genome is occupied by these 2 open reading frames. Open reading frame 1A codes for non-structural proteins. The structural proteins, as we just saw, where S, E, M, and N. They're over here towards the 3' end. S, E, M, and N. These are the structural proteins which you just saw in the preceding slide. These non-structural proteins have other functions. They help in the assembly, the synthesis, and overall they contribute in some other ways so that eventually the proteins can be synthesized, assembled, and allow the virus to bud out and infect other cells. Around 11 non-structural proteins are formed by this first reading frame, and from 12 onwards, as you can see over here, NSP12 to 16 are made by this second open reading frame. Now this is the life cycle of COVID, how it enters and how it tends to propagate. The first, a sort of cleavage happens using a transmembrane protease serine, that's a host cell protease. Once that happens, the spike protein has been cleaved. The spike protein then breaks into 2 subunits, S1 and S2. And the S1 subunit binds and the S2 unit allows it to actually fuse with the host cell membrane, and then the whole thing is endocytosed. So okay, now it's inside, the whole thing gets broken down and the genomic RNA is released into the cytoplasm. Once the RNA comes out, this is a positive sense RNA. So it doesn't need to get transcribed into an mRNA copy and then get translated. A positive sense RNA copy can itself be translated directly. So this positive sense RNA directly undergoes translation to a certain extent. The preceding open reading frames that we saw are the ones which are responsible here. We translate them into 2 polyproteins, 1A and 1AB. Then these are basically big polyproteins. They have to be cleaved into smaller bits. So this cleavage is accomplished by certain proteases. These are virally generated proteases, which ends up generating the separate non-structural proteins. Now the replicase, which is the RNA-dependent RNA, the RNA-dependent RNA polymerase, since it is an RNA virus, it has RNA, it does not have DNA. The RNA-dependent RNA polymerase is going to create an RNA copy from the genomic RNA. The replication is accomplished in a replication transcription complex. So it sort of happens in a bit of a discontinuous manner. The complex is formed, transcription is going on, and replication is going on. So we get the genomic RNA, which is the main RNA, gets replicated, a strand is formed. Whereas at the same time, subgenomic RNAs, in a discontinuous sort of manner, transcription happens and small bits of RNA are formed. And these are the bits that will eventually code for the structural proteins. As you can see, envelope S, E, M, and N. These eventually go on into the endoplasmic reticulum Golgi complex. Because this is an RNA virus, there is no involvement of the nucleus over here. And as we know with all viruses, protein synthesis anyhow takes place in the cytoplasm. So then, these genes are translated and eventual assembly and accumulation happens inside the vesicles, inside the Golgi apparatus and the endoplasmic reticulum. and eventual release of the viral particle through an exocytosis process. This is a basic immune response which happens with regards to almost any pathogen. Once the pathogen enters, or the antigen as such, it is engulfed by an antigen presenting cell. Once this happens, it presents the antigen complexed with major histocompatibility complex 2 and presents it in a sort of Y-shaped structure onto the surface of the cell. This interacts with T helper cells. Now this T helper cell interacts with this complex with the help of a T cell receptor, as you can see over here, which is the same thing. It clings on, and this causes a release of interleukin 1 onto this T helper cell, the first interleukin. Once this happens, this T helper cell then carries out a variety of functions. It produces B cell growth factors, B cell differentiation factors, which act on our B cells. These then are differentiated into memory cells or plasma cells which secrete the antibodies. The T cell itself differentiates into memory cells, and it also produces a large amount of interleukin 2. Interleukin 2 acts on the same T cell that's producing it and on the other T cells itself to sort of cause a differentiation which allows it to produce effector T cells, memory T cells, and even causes an activation of cytotoxic T cells. So it activates the cytotoxic T cells and causes the differentiation into effector T cells, memory T cells. And these cytotoxic T cells then go about causing the cell death through the major histocompatibility complex 1. In short, this is the proposed mechanism for the cytokine storm, which is said to be one of the main causes of mortality progressing to acute respiratory distress syndrome in COVID-19 patients. So basically what happens is the COVID-2 virion goes and attaches again to the angiotensin converting enzyme 2 receptor. Once it enters the cell, this is the respiratory epithelium, alveolar macrophages and dendritic cells are recruited. So these produce interleukin 6, and the damaged epithelial cell also produces interleukin 6. Now vast amounts of interleukin 6 are produced, which leads to all the hyperinflammatory acute phase reactants, which are commonly being used for diagnosis, evaluation of prognosis, like our D-dimer levels, ferritin, CRP, etc. Also, this causes a high level of production of interleukins 12, 1b, tumor necrosis factor alpha, and a large number of WBCs get recruited. So when a large number of WBCs are getting recruited, they produce cytokines. So this cycle goes on and on. It's sort of like a perpetual endless cycle. More and more cytokines keep getting produced, and these cause all sorts of effects on the human body. And some of these cytokines also do leak into circulation, which is what explains the multi-organ pathology. They go affect the liver, the endothelial cells, the kidneys, and all those parts. Now, the cytokine storm, which basically leads to ARDS, can be explained by this putative mechanism. This is a healthy alveolus on the left. We can see we have the alveolar macrophages, type 1, type 2 pneumocytes, a surfactant layer, which is produced by the type 2 pneumocytes, endothelial cells, and everything, which is the normal mechanism that goes about in our body. But when COVID enters, it causes sort of a lot of issues. As we spoke about the cytokine storm earlier, this causes damage to the epithelial cells and the endothelial cells as well. So when the epithelial cells are damaged, type 1, type 2 pneumocytes are damaged. This results in a loss of surfactant, a hyaline membrane tends to get formed, and no surfactant means the alveolus can't stay put. It collapses in on itself. And also because of the damage to the endothelial cells, there is an increase in the permeability. Now when a permeability increases, there is a leakage of all the fluids out into the interstitial space. And because there is damage here as well, there is a decreased permeability here as well. So there tends to be an accumulation of fluid inside the alveolus collapses on itself. Because of this, efficient gaseous exchange cannot take place, a reduced amount of O2 enters, and this causes the hypoxemia. And because of this endothelial